scope should always be straight and relaxed, especially in a proximal colonic lesions like in a cecum or the ascending colon. Because if there's so many amount of loops or the angulation, you won't be have a one-to-one movement and you won't be getting the result that you are wanting. Then lesion should always be in 5 to 6 o'clock position, and it most important is that it should be in a non-dependent position, because if it is in a dependent position, all the water or the blood will gravitate into a dependent position, and finally it will obscure your vision. It will be difficult in technical aspect as well as for management of the complication. Now, first we will talk about the pediculated polyp, which is most commonly we see in our day-to-day life. Though it is most common, the chances of malignancy and its natural history is not being evaluated as in detail as the sessile polyps. But however, irrespective, even if you find any risk of malignancy or any high risk criteria like excavated surfaces there is ulceration. Most of the time, only hot cell polypectomy is sufficient. Endoscopic management is sufficient, because here, as we can see, even if there is a head is harboring carcinoma, the chances of submucosal invasion is very less, because there is a large stock is available compared to the sessile polyps. So it is always better to examine it. The only importance is that if you are suspecting a malignancy in a pediculated polyp, please try to resect it in a one go. Do not divide the head, or do not divide into like piecemeal. Polypectomy should not be done, because otherwise it will be very difficult to say whether there is a residual carcinoma is there in stock or not. Now, stock is also important. You should always examine the stock for its size, length, and characteristic, because if the head is more than 20 mm and stock is more than 10 mm, basically if it is a thick, then it is a very high likely chance that the stock is having a very big amount of the vessels, and then there can be an increased risk of interprocedural bleed. In this such a scenario, is always good to use a prophylactic treatment. It can be either a injection of a diluted adrenaline of 1:10,000, or you can use clip, or you can use snare. What to use whenever there is a long and thin pedicle or the stalk, you can use clip, because one clip will be sufficient to grasp the whole of the stalk. But however, if it is a thick and short type of the pedicle, it is good to use loop, Olympus loop, to grasp the stalk. So whenever we are once we have grasped the stock either with clip or loop, you should always try to keep a distance of at least 5 mm. So there will be a negative margin of in the polypectomy stock, as well as, and most important, if it is you have used clips, please be careful. The clip and snare should not be in contact, otherwise there will be transmission of electrosurgical energy downwards, and that can be a transmural injury. Now, regarding sessile polyp, cold wave is nowadays spreading, especially it was started from Australia, and nowadays there is a good amount of evidence that cold snap polypectomy is associated with decreased risk of delayed bleeding, shorter the procedure time, and decreased risk of thermal injury. By and large, if it is less than 10 mm sessile polyp, cold snap polypectomy is good enough. More than 10 mm, it is still investigational, but usually we use hot snap polypectomy with injection. Cold snare polypectomy, dedicated cold snares are available, and as I've already mentioned, the technique is almost equivalent. The only difference will be that you should always grasp 2 to 3 mm of normal mucosa. There's no need of suction, and when you are closing the snare, it should be a simple one movement. It is a representative video. Now, regarding the hot snare polypectomy, we usually use inject material to decrease the risk of any transmural injury or the thermal injury. We usually use the submucosal injection with the solution that I have already discussed. The important thing is that you should use the needle tangentially, not the perpendicular. That is the most important mistake that usually people do in their initial learning curve, that please advance the needle tangentially. It should be dynamic. That means when you are advancing the needle, your assistant or the technician should simultaneously inject the solution. And when you find there is a cushion has developed, just stop the needle there and elevate the area. The elevation should also be sequential in a manner that the area of interest should come towards the colon towards the colonoscope, means towards the U, and it should be towards the lumen. Because if you are not selectively elevating the area, actually the area of interest might go towards the opposite side, and after that it will be very difficult for you to resect. Now, non-lifting sign is one of the most important signs. Most commonly, many times it suggests submucosal invasion, which can either present as a jet sign or a Keon sign. So whenever you see a large lesion, especially if it is let's say laterally spreading tumor of more than 10 or 15 mm, it is very important that you examine each and every area. Many times what we do is just we do a superficial examination of one specific area, but we miss the area which are having the more chances of submucosal invasion or having a carcinoma. Like this, if you have injected the area, the area which is a most dangerous one, which is a depressed area, won't elevate. In this scenario, if you will resect all this area and if you will leave this behind, it is of no use, because anyway patient is going to come again with the recurrence of adenoma or even with a disseminated carcinoma. So please examine the area, especially in a laterally spreading tumors. But however, non-lifting signs can also because of the submucosal fibrosis, which can be either because of the failed previous attempt, prolapse of polyp, dip biopsy, or even with the peristalsis. But until it is proved otherwise, non-lifting sign is usually considered to be because of the submucosal invasion. Now, regarding the hot snare polypectomy, always try to do on en bloc resection. But however, if it is more than 20 mm, and if you think that the en bloc resection is associated with more chances of perforation or any complication, piecemeal resection is also good enough. The most important point in piecemeal resection is always start with the difficult area or the area which is suspicious for harboring a malignancy, and always resect in continuity. Please do not leave any island, because if you leave any island, the additional therapy or the rescue therapy are not as good as the polypectomy. Now, regarding the tip and tricks of the hot snare polypectomy, it is a video. So here you see most of the time what trainees do initial in the learning curve, that they will directly open the entire of the snare. So it should not be there. It should be a selectively opening of the snare, and also give direction the snare according to the polyp so that it completely encircles the polyp. As you can see here, we are giving direction as well as and gradually opening, and we have ensured that almost all of the polyp has covered. After that, when we are closing, it should be again a dynamic movement. When you are closing, your catheter you should also push the catheter. Otherwise, if you will keep your catheter near the scope, the snare will come out, and you won't be able to have a polyp in your grasp. Now, once you have grasped the polyp like this, you have to ensure that there is no associated musculus propria involvement. For that, please use your small knob, that is right or left knob, and direct the polyp towards the lumen. If you are not able to, that means there is an associated musculus propria involvement. If so, you can just release the snare for 1 to 2 mm, and afterwards you can readjust. But please do not open the snare in toto, otherwise the polyp will slip away. After that, you can use just 1 or 2 cut duration, and polyp usually should be able to cut. Once you are able to cut the polyp, please examine the margin for any target sign. So this is basically a cut polyp. You are able to see the submucosa, and here the whitish margin is the musculus propria. So if this is present, that it means suggestive of the target sign. The target mirror sign, which you can see in the colonic mucosa, is opposite of the target sign. Here this one is the submucosa, and this is the defect in the musculus propria. So if you are saying this, that means the musculus propria has been breached. In this situation, you have to clip the defect, otherwise there can be a fecal contamination. Now, role of prophylactic clipping. Like after EMR, do we need to do a clipping of each and every defect? Usually, no. There is no need until unless there is a very large lesion of more than 20 mm. If patient is already on aspirin, or if it's the right-sided lesion, in that situation, prophylactic clipping is associated with decreased risk of delayed bleeding. Otherwise, there is no need. Please examine the entire area, especially in case of a larger polyp or any residual treatment, residual island. If you're not able to remove the residual island, you can use the rescue plant like hot avulsion method, or you can use the forced IPC or the forced coagulation. But however, they are not that much effective as compared to the polypectomy. And after that, try all the specimen for histopathological diagnosis. Now, so it is again a recent ASG guideline which has been published in 2020. If it is a pedunculated polyp and head size of more than 20 mm or stalk size of more than 5 mm, it requires a prophylactic treatment. If it is a sessile polyp and diminuted less than 5 mm in size or up to 10 mm in size, full snare polypectomy is good enough. It is more than 10 mm, and if you think it is an intermediate size but JNT classification up to 2A or the NICE classification up to 2, then you can go ahead with the whole cold or hot snare polypectomy. But if it is more than 20 mm, you need to involve the experts into that, and depending upon again JNT classification, you can either go ahead with hot or cold snare polypectomy. Now, if there is a suspected submucosal invasion, then if it is up to only JNT type 2A, you can go ahead with the ESD. But if it is deep, either NICE classification or JNT classification up to 3, you should refer the patient for the surgery. Now, complication, bleeding is one of the most important. Risk is up to 20 to 25% of the patient might have, 10 to 25% of the patient might have intraprocedural bleeding, depending upon site and size of the lesion. Usually, it is mild to mild bleeding only. You can easily do a snare tip coagulation or the coagulation hemostatic faucet. There is a blue paddle, and you have to run either forced coagulation mode or the soft coagulation mode. Delayed bleeding, again 6 to 10% risk. Most of the time they spontaneously stops, but however, if not, then you go ahead with the endoscopy. Again, here endoscopy is the first line of the management until the patient is more dynamically unstable, in which you can go ahead with the CT angiography or the intervention radiological help. But usually, more than 90% it will get settled with the endoscopic management. Post-polypectomy syndrome is specific for the hot snare polypectomy. It is because of the transdermal injury. Is basically chemical peritonitis. Usually gets settled with conservative management, IV fluids and antibiotics, but CT scan might be required to exclude the perforation. Perforation is one of the most dreaded complication of such polypectomy or the large EMR. Usually it is only 0.5 to 1%. Until unless it is type 5, which is associated with the fecal peritonitis, usually you can manage it with the endoscopic closure. Just remember that please do not panic. If you are not competent enough, please ask your seniors or one of the expert endoscopists to have a look. Minimize the CO2 insufflation. Reposition the patient to make it anti-gravity side and reduce the contamination, close it with the clips, but admit the patient, start broad spectrum antibiotic, go ahead with the CT scan, as well as always keep the surgeons in loop, because you may never know, because if you're not sure whether you have been able to completely close the defect with the clip or not. Post-polypectomy surveillance is again another whole topic, but by and large, polyps, adenoma with high-grade dysplasia, adenoma more than 10 mm in size, more than 4 adenoma of any size, sessile serrated adenoma with dysplasia irrespective of the size, and sessile serrated adenoma of more than 10 mm. In all these, polyps basically requires surveillance. In that, first surveillance endoscopy is usually done at 3 years. But however, if there is a high-risk polyp, like more than 20 mm laterally spreading tumor, or the piecemeal EMR has been done, in that, first colonoscopy is always better to do as early as possible, because chances of recurrence is maximum at 3 months. We usually use only white light endoscopy with NDA, but however, if there is any suspiciousness of the recurrence, you can go ahead with the targeted biopsy, and you can go ahead with the similar type of the polypectomy or EMR that you have done earlier. So to conclude, thorough examination and documentation is of most important in case of a polyp. Prepare the patient and prepare yourself, know your instruments well. For pedunculated polyp, examine the head and stalk, and hot snare polypectomy is usually sufficient. If it is less than 10 mm sessile polyp, cold snare polypectomy is sufficient. If it is more than 10 mm sessile polyp, you can use cold snare, but usually with the data available till now, hot snare polypectomy is still preferred modality. After polypectomy, examine the muscular integrity. Most important that we usually miss as endoscopists is follow up of the patient after histopathological report, and please make a surveillance plan. And further reading for the postgraduate, there is a yeah, ASG as well as ESG guideline. Both are very good, and both are very practical. However, there are other good review articles are also available. One is by Dr. Douglas of less than 20 mm in size. How we detect the colorectal polyp? Similarly, more than 20 mm is also available, which has been also published in GI endoscopy 2 years back, which was published by Dr. Pradeep Bhandari and Dr. Michael Bob. Similarly, cold polypectomy also in GI endoscopy, a very good review article is available. And TGH, how to perform high quality EMR, which is a very good review article depending practical points they have discussed by, and it has been published by Dr. Michael Bob. I think every postgraduate student should read all these articles before going ahead with the polypectomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil, for a wonderful and very informative lecture with a demonstration of polypectomy video. I'm sure this is quite useful for all of us. So on behalf of all the participants, we thank you for a wonderful lecture. A couple of questions are there in the chat box. Before we ask you some questions, there's one question to Dr. Usha Datta that Nikhil Gandhi says that he could not attend last 3 sessions. So are the video available somewhere? So you want to highlight that part?
Yeah, we would share those videos. We have all those videos recorded. We are making a website for the department, so we'll put up those videos on that. And till then, we will share it by a Gmail link.
Perfect, perfect. Now, coming to, again, I ask one question again for clarity, Jamil, that if you can share a slide a bit later after a couple of questions and source the setting of RB for polypectomy and explain to again the 4 points we're going to take: time, duration, cutting, setting. Maybe we start with that and then we come back to questions, because it's very important for all the residents to learn and understand the basic philosophy and the setting. Why do we set that? Maybe take a couple of minutes time on that. I think this is very, very important.
So should I do right now or after the questions, sir?
Maybe we can do it because questions are not too many. So we can do this video for this one. If you can explain.
Yes. Yes. Sir. Okay. So basically, yes. So basically, there are yellow pedal and a blue pedal. So by and large, blue pedal is for the coagulation mode and the yellow pedal is for the cutting mode. In cutting mode also, we'll get so many type of the cutting like auto cut, dry cut, endo cut, Q, etc. It all depends upon the frequency, and there is also in every type of the mode there will be again some specific subsections are always there in effect as well as the what. In endo cut Q there is effect, cut duration, and cut interval. If you're not sure that what does it suggest, then there in near to the effect. I'm sorry here because of I have done the cropping. So here usually there is also a button of info, so you can press the info and you usually the company itself will give you some amount of idea that what does it suggest. So in endocut Q mode, the effect ranges from 1 to 4. So 1 is equivalent to maximum amount of cutting and lesser amount of the coagulation. So as you move from 1 to 4, the coagulation effect gradually increases while cutting effect gradually decreases. So cutting duration depends upon with each pulse or with each cycle, how much amount of the time the electrosurgical unit will deliver the current, and cutting interval means between 2 pulse, how much amount of millisecond pause will be there between 2 pulse. So if you increase the cut duration and decrease the cut interval, your pulse intensity will increase and you will have a more intense cut or coagulation depending upon your effect. Similarly, in post-coagulation, here, I'm sorry, again, usually we use with 40 or 50 watts, not with 80 watts. So again, in post-coagulation, there is effect 1 or effect 2. You can always upsize or down depending upon your need. And as I already mentioned, that there is a very good review article is available on ASG guide. It was basically a technical technical by ASG, which was published in I think 4 or 5 years back. But it is a very good article. And apart from that, there are good company-sponsored Arabic pamphlets are available on their website, official website. That also gives a very good brief idea about all these modes apart from endocut Q and force and soft coagulation.
Can I just say something here? Just for the participants, in the next month session, we are having a session by Dr. Vikram Bhatia on the tools for hemostasis. So Dr. Vikram Bhatia usually takes a very detailed lecture on every component of using of these electrosurgical equipment. So there also you would get clarification further on this aspect. And apart from whatever Dr. Jamil has already highlighted and the papers which he has asked you to go through.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's a very important point that we must know all our equipment we use and what the setting of that. Therefore, I requested Jamil to speak to them that concept again.
Even sir, in my residency also we struggle a lot in understanding electrosurgical units. But now I think because with advent of all these therapeutic endoscopies, we must know all these electrosurgical units because they are going to rescue in case of any complications, bleeding or anything.
Dr. Jayanta, would you like to add something to what Dr. Jamil has already said about these aspects? Dr. Govind had wanted us to clarify all these components.
No, ma'am, it's absolutely fine. He has completely clarified most of the parts, all those which are practically required for the polypectomy. Exactly.
Now, also, more importantly, that Dr. Jamil has already said that a couple of technical articles published. So good to go through those. Exactly. And again, we have Vikram's talk coming up next month. So again, to emphasize that we need to know our equipments and all this well, so that we can use it most optimally. Now, I will not leave you, Jamil, without any questions. There's some of the good questions are there. That this Ganpati asked that if you are doing a colonoscopy for colonic surveillance of a patient with ulcerative colitis, so how much spray do you do with the chromoendoscope agent? The whole colon, or there we have suspicion of a lesion?
We usually use only when there is a suspicion of lesion. We usually use in our routine practice. We use only digital chromoendoscopy. Okay, so again the same question comes again that while we do digital, while we withdraw scope for surveillance, so you keep your NBI, you keep your switch of NBI on, or you switch off and on at the site of suspicious lesion. So you examine in white light and you switch on NBI only once you have suspicion, or you keep your NBI already on all through the withdrawal time. We usually keep first we start withdrawal with using white light. After that, whenever there is a suspicious lesion, we usually turn on the NBI mode. But moreover, with every segment, we usually turn on the NBI mode once a while. So while withdrawing every 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 10 centimeters, we again turn on the NBI mode whether there is any suspicious lesion is there or not. If so, we go ahead with the detailed examination of the lesion. Perfect. The other question again, just for clarity purpose, although explains very well. The Rupa want to add something on that? The Rupa? Okay. Do you want to add something?
Can you? No, I think what he said is right. I think NBI, when you go in, it's better to have a white light, clear image. Go in, and during the withdrawal is where you should have more time. And then identify lesions, interrogate and characterize lesions. And I think it should be all decisions should be taken based on NBI findings. And the learning curve for NBI is not tough. That is another message. So earlier when we had started about a decade more ago, the machines were much lower end. But now with the newer machines, it is very clear, easy to identify, and it should become a part of routine practice.
Sorry, Govind. So, Dr. Rupa, would you advocate that we do all withdrawals in NBI and we go forward in white light?
I normally, I normally find it useful because, white light is very important. And I find it very convenient if I'm going in on white light, seeing and then reaching. But on the withdrawal, I normally take more time switching on and off between NBI and non-NBI. And once you get into that habit, the time taken also comes down. So it's just, you go in on your thing and then coming back time, you're switching in, off, on, off every field. That becomes much easier. So I would definitely recommend. Yes, Jimmy.
The only thing that when we are doing the screening, you have to just switch off and on between white line and NBI. No need to go ahead with the magnification, because then it will become more cumbersome to adjust the scope according to the magnification. So
I agree. Magnification is something you don't need all the time.
Exactly, ma'am.
Even magnification is not needed all the time. Even just if you clean the whole area, and that's what you should do on your way in.
Yes.
Just keep every field ready. When you're moving out, NBI itself will able to characterize majority of lesions. Once you magnify, you need to have a very stable hand. Many people use a cap and then try to focus, but I think that is also not needed. You can actually just.
No, please complete, Dr. Rupa.
No, I think cap also is not needed all the time because you don't need magnification and stabilization for all lesions. But if you want to integrate in detail, that particular point you magnify. But otherwise, just plain NBI.
The other question, because Jimmy already explained so well, that again to reiterate and revisit, what is the difference between cold and hot snare, and where do cold polypectomy and where do hot polypectomy? Already explained so well, and also the Gautam wants to see your video once more of cold snare polypectomy.
Okay. Basically, cold snare polypectomy is like cold. You don't use electrosurgical unit. It is just a resection of the polyp. While in hot snare polypectomy is a routine conventional polypectomy where we are using electrosurgical unit or any current, either endocut Q mode or any other mode. Now, regarding where to use, if it is a pedunculated polyp, always use hot snare polypectomy. If it is a sessile polyp less than 10 mm in size, go ahead with the cold snare polypectomy. But again, there you should use a dedicated cold snares which are available. It is available in India also from Olympus, either in name of Snare Master Plus or from Boston Scientific in name of Captivator Cold. Okay, and
they cut because they are sharp. They cut because they are sharp.
Yes. They cut because they are made up of only monofilament, so they cut sharp. If you are using a conventional snare to do cold snare polypectomy, there will be a ragged margin and there will be increased chances of intraprocedural bleed. So if you are going ahead with the cold snare polypectomy, please have a dedicated cold snare within your endoscopy suite.
The reason, Dr. Jimil, so many people are confused about this is they want to know why they should not do a hot snare polypectomy for a small polyp.
So, ma'am, very good question. So, the thing is that hot snare polypectomy, because we are using the cautery, and every time we have to inject and we should lift up, because if we are doing hot snare polypectomy without any injection or without any submucosal cushion, there will always be a chances of transmural damage and transmural dissemination of the injury. It can cause it might not cause anything but however, post polypectomy syndrome, which is only because of the chemical peritonitis, is also quite a common after such a hot snare polypectomy. Second thing, with every lesion, suppose let's say there are 5 or 10 small polyp. With every lesion, if you spend time in injection, elevation, graded elevation towards your side, and after that you are cutting it will definitely increase the procedure time. So whatsoever studies have shown that the cold snare polypectomy is associated with decreased risk of decreased procedural time, decreased risk of intra-procedure bleed, as well as decreased risk of electrosurgical unit-related injury because we are not using it. But if it is a larger polyp of, let's say, more than 20 mm, the main problem of cold snare are that they are available in two sizes at this moment, 10 mm and 15 mm. So if it is a, let's say, polyp of 20 mm, in that scenario, you won't be able to resect and block with the cold snare polyps. Though there are some amount of studies from Professor Michael Berg that even in more than 20 mm polyp, especially sessile serrated polyps, they do piecemeal piecemeal cold snare polypectomy, and the long-term outcome is almost equivalent to hot snare polypectomy because sessile serrated adenoma is associated with decreased risk of recurrence and decreased risk of future carcinoma. But however, that is only from a one unit and it is a single center study. So till we develop further area and we have that much amount of expertise, I would still suggest that if it is more than 10 mm, go ahead with the cold snare polypectomy. It would be a better option.
I'll just make
Jayanta.
I'll just make just one more point to reiterate the fact what Dr. Jamiel has already pointed out is that the residents needs to clearly understand that for cold snare, as Dr. Jamiel has pointed out, it has to be a monofilament one, because with a monofilament one, the edge is sharp. So it is like you are cutting with a knife. On the contrary, any routine snares that are available, those are braided. Those are multi-filament braided ones. So if you try to do a snare polypectomy with cold snare polypectomy with a braided snare, then it will cause a major amount of injury and the bleed chances of it will also be higher. So that is a very important essential point, I guess.
It's like doing a liver biopsy.
Yeah, and the same reason why if we are doing many times it is a small polyp, you have injected and you are trying to do a polypectomy, but before applying electrosurgical unit cautery, the polyps get resected. In that also, even a 5 mm polyps bleeds almost for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you are applying clips even for a 5 mm polyp. That is the reason that please don't do a cold snare polypectomy with your conventional braided snare.
Okay, we're running out of time. But last question, Jamiel, that if you have multiple polyps in the colon, how many polyps you remove at one session, or you do go back and so how do you plan that? If there are multiple polyps, how do we do that?
Usually, there is no upper limit of doing polypectomy numbers, but it all depends upon your patience and your timing. That is the most important aspect, because I have not seen, but I have heard that even in the St. Mark Hospital where there is a very huge amount of FAP patients, so they usually go ahead with even 40 to 50 polypectomy in a single session. So it all depends upon how rapidly you are able to do it, your patient's comfort, and etc. But regarding the strategy, the bigger polyps, if you are thinking adenomatous polyps, you should definitely target them first.
So with this, I think
I think you must also think about your pathologist. If you're resecting a hoard full of hyperplastic polyps and sending, I think we should not be overzealous. Sometimes, particularly since we have fellows, we see them removing every tiny minute polyp. I think we should also think of resources and keep it in mind. The policy, we have to be targeted. Even in polypectomy, better to be targeted.
But I think this point may be a bit controversial. Unless there's a hyperplastic polyp, you may leave, but all adenomas has to be removed. Even there or 20 or 30, you might do 5 sessions.
Yes.
But every adenoma has to be removed.
No, what I'm saying, adenomatous, so that's the reason why. So it should be either large hyperplastic, resect and discard, or but removing all hyperplastic polyps is you're just putting the patient at risk also. No, so adenomatous, yes, we have to. The message is very clear.
When I read the St. Mark's protocol, so what they usually do whenever there is such a FAP patients who are not ready to go ahead with the total colectomy, or even in the REM, there are so many polyps. So what they usually do is that they dedicate some specific time, that on 2 hours, they'll try to resect as many adenoma as possible. Then 2 weeks again, after that, they'll do it again. It is just like a necrosectomy, that you dedicated time, that 1 hour, I'll try to remove as much necrosome as possible. After that, you do it again after 4 or 5 days.
With this, I think
so that's quite kind of called carpet. carpet removal. You know, you
Yes,
fix
ma'am.
that area, that up to this we will do that,
Yes,
and then
yes.
the next carpet. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And with this, we need to close this lecture. Thank you, Dr. Jamil, and thank you, Dr. Rupal
Thank you, sir.
Banerjee, for a wonderful talk. Both of you, quite learning experience for me at least, and I'm sure for all the participants of this session. Thank you again very much. Take care, and I